very special episode of the Choose Happiness podcast. We are here on location in Cherry Creek, Denver, at a beautiful, I would say the most beautiful antique and rare bookshop that I have ever seen. And we're gonna go talk to the proprietor, Sam Butler. I am so excited for you to meet him. This is gonna be so cool. Come on in and let's meet Sam. Hi, Sam! Good to see you! Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh my gosh, thanks for coming by. It's making the space and the time. So glad to have you.
Thank you. This is Sam Butler, proprietor of the Hermitage Bookshop, like I said, here in Cherry Creek, Denver. Sam, please tell us all about this wonderful place that we're standing in.
Yeah, so the Hermitage Bookshop has been here in Cherry Creek for about 40 years. And we've been in business in Denver for now going on 53. So it makes us, we're Denver's oldest independent used bookshop. Yeah, a lot of people will see our massive gilt archway sign out front and see this Hermitage Antiquarian Bookshop and get in their minds this picture of old, dusty, expensive antique books, and that is partly what we do, minus the dust. And but we really strive to have the rare antiquarian collectible books and to value books as objects and as pieces of history. But also we're just a really good neighborhood bookshop. And so books for your next flight or the next beach vacation, we want to make sure we have really great quality books at every price point for any kind of buyer, from the little kids all the way up to the seasoned collector who's been collecting rare books for their entire life, and everything in between. We try to strive to have it here. So.
That's great. Well, I cannot get enough of this place. It is so beautiful. If you could take us on a quick tour. If you're just listening, you'll have to come down to the shop to see it. But yeah, let's take a quick look around for those of you on video.
So, really think of our shop in kind of two phases. One is this entryway phase, which is really going to be kind of the more antiquarian, high-end collectible side of who we are. And so our really rare, which we'll talk about later, our really rare and collectible stuff behind the counter. And then one of our favorite, both staff sections and customer favorites, are these three cases up front, which we lovingly call cute and charming. These are books typically mostly from the 19th century. So 19th century period leather and cloth bindings across all literary genres. Kind of in that great beginner collector. You can spend $45 and get a great book from the 1800s to begin to start a collection.
Oh, wow.
And then right across the wall from that is kind of the modern version of that. So kind of our mid-range entry collecting spot for modern editions. So first editions, signed editions, and deluxe editions, again in that like $35 to $300 range. So great gifts, but great really starting place collectors, collector pieces. And then everything else in our shop is for the everyday reader. Everything else is in that $35 to $50 range, or $15 to $50 range. Everything we do, one of the hallmarks of our shop is everything in our shop is hardcover.
Wow.
And so there are a slew of paperbacks in the world, and they're really collectible paperbacks. But we chose decades ago to restrict ourselves just to hardcovers. Primarily first editions come out in hardcover first. And so we try to have those, and unless a book came out in paperback originally, or it's a special edition, something like that, those would be the only paperbacks you see in our shop. So it's one of the hallmarks for us is going to be that they're hardcover and everything is in excellent condition. We have customers all the time that think we're a new bookshop, but everything in here is secondhand, and we have an extremely high bar of condition curation as well as content curation throughout the rest of the shop. And so we're a true generalist shop, and so everything in here spans every category from general literature to world and U.S. history to sporting and games, arts, photography, and then at the very back of our shop is very intentional space next to general lit. It's our biggest section per square foot in our shop, and that's our children's section. And so one of the values of the shop has always been to prize young readers and to provide them affordable, good literature, from the oversized children's books down by the floor for 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, all the way up to young adult. And we want to bring them through our entire shop and have a space for them in the back, and really be a shop that can curate someone's life of reading from infancy all the way up to being a seasoned collector or reader. And so the space back here is really intentional. We've always wanted it to be the biggest space. And again, that antiquarian word throws people off and they don't want to touch things. And we want to invite people all the way to the deepest part of our shops to take books off the shelf, handle them. We put our oversized kids' books at the very lowest shelf so the kids can pull them off, unorganize them so that we can re-alphabetize them later and practice their spelling. And there you have it. And that is the fullness of our shop. One little hallway with thousands of wonderful books.
Well, it's wonderful because when you look around here, you realize books are meant to be read. They're not just meant to be behind glass to look at as if it's I mean, they are very precious, but books are meant to be read. Music is meant to be listened to, that kind of a thing. So I really love that you guys celebrate this. I think I want to live here. I'll just set up in this. How about if I just set up here?
We've got a great nightly rate in the back.
Perfect. That sounds great. Well, let's have a seat and we'll get to know Sam a little more. So tell us, how did you get started in the rare and antique book business?
Not by design. I've had a slew of careers in my young life, and previous to this, I was in education for about 6 years. I taught philosophy and religion at the high school level and was a high school administrator. And in fall of 2021, I found myself outside of education and was friends with these two wonderful people named Ian and Renee. I had taught their daughter in high school, and I had coached her in soccer. And so I'd known them mostly through parent-teacher conferences. We went to church together, so I knew them a little bit through that. And so when I actually lost my job in education, so when I lost my job, Ian had reached out just to connect and get to know my story a little bit and who I was. And so we started this journey. Every couple weeks we'd get coffee or breakfast and just talk life. We talked books, we read together, we both had a love for learning and philosophy. And then in January of 2022, he sent me a text that just said, hey, there's this bookshop up in Cherry Creek, and I want you to go check it out and tell me what you think about it. And I'd never been up here before, and I've moved in Denver down in south of Denver, and so came up here. And when I was looking it up to figure out how to get here and what the specialty was, I came across an article from earlier in the year that the owner of 49 Years was selling it. And I texted my wife, and it's always been a dream of mine to run a used bookshop. And Ian had no idea about this dream. I almost completely ruined our life savings when we first moved to Denver, buying this old rickety bookshop with horrible books. But it was just the dream, and I had a friend talk me out of it. I was like, you're gonna ruin your life. And so I texted my wife, and I was like, I think they might be buying this place. And so came here, took my notes, went back, and I was like, are you guys gonna like put an offer on this place? And he said that they were already in conversation with the previous owner, Bob. And I was like, well, you've got your own day job. Renee's doing her thing. You guys have kids about to go to, like, who's gonna run this thing? And he was like, I don't know. We just felt this really strong push and draw to have the conversation and consider investing in this business. And I was like, well, you have to let me do it.
Amazing.
And
yeah.
And so we got talking, and he was like, I think that'd be great. And so once the deal got finalized, I came in as general manager and run the book buying and the curation of the shop and management of the team. And had before that been an avid reader and had a value for more analog, antiquarian type things. And so hit the ground running here. with one of the most prestigious rare bookshops in the West, and apprenticed under the previous owner, Bob. And we were lucky enough to inherit his team, who stayed on with us, and now dear friend and mentor of mine, Joanne, who was my right hand person, flooded me with knowledge, and it is an ever growing relationship in the rare book world, and a stream that keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And so that's how I fell into it.
Wow, I love this story so much because it shows that even if you have a dream that might not be right at one time, hang on to it, because you don't know what's coming around the corner. And it could be, and this is probably better than you ever could have imagined, that original Ricky old shop, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
I would have been happy just like behind the counter at a Barnes and Noble, probably.
Yeah.
Just being around books, and to truly fall into the deep end.
Yes.
Is terrifying, intimidating. It still is.
Right.
And I'm reminded every day of the knowledge I don't have. But
Sure.
to be able to fall into the deep end in this side and see the things that we get to see, to handle the books that most people in their life will never need to touch or see,
Right.
much less get to know intimately and turn the pages of and write stories for and research. It truly is in many ways a dream come true.
Wow. And I love the fact that you and Ian met and then started this relationship, and then this business came out of that. It's such a beautiful story how things are often meant to happen at the right time.
Yeah, for my wife and I, we've, a lot of people's lives are driven by their own drivenness, and which is great. Some people have that and it works, and they know what they want and they go get it, and they have the discipline and the community around them. My wife and I have always found us in this place, not that we're not driven, but we've just always found ourselves in these serendipitous moments where our major life turns have always, we've been married for 15 years, and every major life turn we've had, every major job transition we've had, or career switch, every major tragedy that's turned into a beautiful part of our story has always been driven by people. And when I lost my job in education, I didn't plan to try to find a rare book job. I was looking at other schools to teach. I was looking at other things just to make whatever I could to support my family. And then all of a sudden, this relationship that I had, for no other reason than it was a blessing and a joy to know Ian and Renee, this thing falls open. And my wife has the same kind of stories. I have stories previous to that. And so it's, for us, our lives and our joys around those turns have always been driven by, are you pouring into people and letting people pour into you? And are you loving people well? And if you do that, is this where I thought I'd be? No. Do I wish I was doing something else at times? Yeah, I wish I miss teaching. I miss other things that I've done, but I can't imagine being anywhere else, because this is where the people around me have brought me. Right. And I'm along for the ride in that in so many ways to make the best of it. And so we keep making friends and keep loving people and keep letting people love us, knowing that we hopefully can do the same thing that Ian and Renee did for us, of just being there and creating opportunities that hopefully we can do that for other people. And so there's not a stop along the journey that I had on my roadmap, but couldn't imagine any other way.
That is so inspiring, and the fact that you were also open to a new opportunity. You weren't pigeonholed into, I have to stay in education, or I have to make this certain amount of money, or anything like that. You were really open to what was ready to come to you at the right time. And it's interesting, I feel like in this day and age where we have, especially since COVID, we aren't connecting with other people as much. It sounds like everything that's happened in your life has really come from connections with other people. And so I really want to encourage people to forge those connections and keep those connections going, because you never know what could happen as a result.
Right.
And when you put good things out there, you hope good things will then come back to you.
Yeah.
So I love that.
I was raised in a home, mostly a single parent home with my mom, and it was one of the things that was instilled in me at a young age was our house was always kind of seen as like the neighborhood hotel. And so if there was a friend that was on hard times, or there was somebody at work that my mom knew that needed a place to stay, our house was always open. And so it was instilled in me from a very young age that everything we have is given to us from somewhere else, and it's a core part of our family, it's a core part of my faith, that the door's open, and if those opportunities come around, that's great. But also, one of the things my mom taught me from an early age was that person may come and stay, and no opportunity may never come, and that people as an end in and of themselves are worth it. Anything beyond that is the joy of knowing people, and that's the cherry on top, is that if you can know somebody and that relationship flourish into something, into a dynamic work relationship where you get to manage a rare bookshop, or it becomes a best friend that helps you through the most difficult time you've ever gone through, from an unexpected place. Those are the moments that we live for. But even before that, it stops with people. And if it never gets to that, that creating those relationships, having the door open, was still worth it. If I would have been flipping burgers right now because I couldn't find a job after teaching, and I was still meeting with Ian every couple of weeks, that's still worth it, right? And this opportunity doesn't make the relationship worth it. The relationship makes this worth it. And that reversal, that I don't want to live my life moving through people. I want people to live through my life, and that's what we want to live for. That's what my wife and I strive to live for. And part of why we've come across the opportunities we have come across is trying to value people and relationships, just because people and relationships are valuable. And inevitably, dynamics happen. Inevitably, chaos turns into order. Inevitably, those things spin into a way that this beautiful webs of relationships and opportunities and jobs and healing happen. But it begins with people and relationships. And once you do that well, then the doors fling wide open to these kinds of things. But even if this doesn't happen, I'd still be loving to get breakfast every 2 weeks with Ian or Renee, and that would be worth it in and of itself.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So I would love to learn more about the books that you carry, because this is just such I could really spend a lot of time here, and I'm planning to. Can you tell us about some of the most interesting or most rare or special books either you have procured for someone or that have come through the door? Because people can bring you their books to sell, and then people can also request books for you to find them for them. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we do. Everything in the shop is bought from private collectors, owners, by estate auctions, that kind of stuff. So our books are collected from all over the place. One of the things that's is a kind of a core value of our shop, we typically don't accept donations, and part of that is twofold. Part is because we have such a high bar of condition and content, that we try to have a very curated group of books, and we just don't have the space to just accept donations on just kind of rolling. And but the other part is like we want an investment in every single book in the shop. Every single book in the shop has cost the shop cash, and that means we have to really care for our curation, because every one of these books has an impact on the business, and so we value that curation really, really dearly. And as far as finding books for people, we typically don't do a lot of procuring. We would end up doing that to be all we would ever do. And so we do some high-end procuring for more seasoned collectors, more high-end books, that kind of stuff. For everyday reads, people looking for a new book, the beauty of the world as it is right now, with the online world, even if you want to shop local, which we obviously always encourage. Especially in a place like Denver, it's a pretty good book ecosystem. There are several independent bookshops that carry new books. There's several independent shops that carry used books across all conditions and contents. And so, so we just don't need to do that. I would rather push someone to go support another local independent business than spend the time to find that $20 book that just came out for somebody. And so, so the only procuring we do is for, like I said, those more upper reaches, collectible content. As far as how the books in the shop, we really value books that's whose content is literary, is diverse. You know, the beauty of the world is you can get anything you want. We want to bring the things that you didn't know you wanted, and we want to bring you the things that that you can't get anywhere else. Obviously, prize winners and cultural books that have cultural impact, we want to carry those books, and you're going to find those in almost any bookshop. But when it comes to our both our general stock and our more collectible stuff up front, we want to bring books that have stories. We want to bring books that have impact, and that are also great reads, great source of information, well researched. We have a high value for academic presses in our nonfiction side, and while great information and great knowledge and great reading can come from any place, we want to make sure and curate a selection of books that is not only already respected, but that are voices that can speak into culture, stories and information that is accurate, well researched, that is beautiful and well written, and that encourages the world to tend towards goodness. And so whether it's our children's section and looking at our oversized books and wanting books that have cultural diversity, that are multilingual, that tell stories from different perspectives, different socioeconomic classes, have information that kids should know about, and all the way up to our rare and antiquarian. We value first and foremost books that should inform the world, and we want to bring those stories out in the best way we can.
You can feel that in the vibe of the space, that this is really a space of goodness and love, and it's obviously it's a business. You're in business to make money,
right.
But that's not what you feel when you walk in. You just feel like you're welcome to browse for as long as you want, and there's no pressure to buy anything, which I really love. And again, I love that these books here are meant to be taken out and looked at and read and perused and shared. And you see these people on TV handling books with gloves, and did I hear that that's not the right thing to do? Or tell us why.
It's one of the biggest misnomers in the rare book world, and why it's exploded in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, I'm not sure. But it's one of the biggest misnomers in the rare book world. For the most part, gloves, anytime you see somebody wearing white gloves handling a rare book, it's usually for cinematic effect. It's a nod to the audience to say we're handling something valuable. And white gloves are one of the cultural images of value. And so there are places in the collectible world, antiques, art, where a certain level of protection between the hand and the medium is important. For the rare book worlds, it's not something that any book dealer that I know does, for 2 primary reasons. One is it's impractical. It's not needed. We say clean, dry hands to handle books. There's nothing on clean, dry hands that's going to overly damage a book. And like we alluded to earlier, books are meant to be handled, and it's a different medium than working with a piece of art. And bindings and pages can handle clean, dry hands. And more importantly, gloves take away probably the most important thing for a rare book dealer, which is our tactile feel. And so, especially dealing with rare books, one of the things that we do with every rare book that we have is we do a thing called collate. So we have to literally turn every single page of a book, sometimes that's thousands of pages long, and examine for condition, for completeness, and make sure everything is as it should be. The most important part in that process to make sure we don't damage the book is that we can feel every leaf that we turn. And a glove, latex, cotton, linen, whatever, is going to remove that. And you're either going to have fibers that grab pages and tear them, or you're going to have material on the gloves that sticks to pages and tears them. Whereas careful, clean, dry hands can feel every page. And so gloves are actually going to increase exponentially the potential to damage a rare book rather than preserve it.
Wow, I love learning this kind of stuff. That's so cool. Can we go see some rare books?
Yes.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's see what we've got here. This is very exciting.
There's a million things you could pull off the shelf. I went more towards our antiquarian side, and as just a more of a visual than anything else. We got a massive book, folio size book, a little bitty, almost miniature book, and then one special one that's one of my own favorites that has its own story to it. They'll kind of illustrate a little bit of how we think about books. And so, like I was talking about earlier, right, we don't wear gloves so that we can collate correctly and safely. I remember, I have a love-hate relationship with this. This is Charles Ashburton's History of England from 1798. And massive 2-column, kind of popular level text on the history of England with really some of just the greatest period full page plates that we have in the shop. And they span the history of England and kind of have this Game of Thrones feel. There's one in here of the murder in the cathedral with the Archbishop of Canterbury, and it's just this book in particular, it's just this great historical picture of what England was, and a good reminder that it's not the world today. And most parts, thankfully so. But I have a love-hate relationship with this book because I got here at like 8:30 in the morning. We opened at 10 and gave myself an hour and a half to literally flip through every single page of this massive tome to make sure that it's complete, it's correct, everything is in the right place, and condition is as it should be. This is going to illustrate perfectly the condition bar that we have, right? Beautiful 19th century binding done in brown calf, and this really beautiful marbled paper. And then internally, right, this is what we love to see. It's unscathed, it's beautiful, clean and sharp and crisp, and this is what we love to see in the rare book world. In contrast to this, sometimes tiny little gems come in, and this little book is a book of poetry by a French poet named Desmarest, and much more of a humble little binding, a little book of French poetry. Not this kind of awe-inspiring fine binding in this guy. And we open up, and it's been cut down. This is from the 1590s, which is part of the reason why the binding is a little older. So it's looking at a probably 17th century binding and early 18th century binding. And we open up, and this is the other thing we love to see in the antiquarian book world is little treasures on the page, right? So one of the things I love about this book, one of the stories that we may never be able to tell fully is all throughout we have these little, we call marginalia. And so they're these little little side notes by some previous reader. They're all in French, they're all handwritten, and going through and finding owner's marks, finding this provenance of where this book came from, and showing that this book was read and used is actually something in the rare book world that we really love, especially with our older books. It's part of the story that we tell. Is how does this book connect to its previous readers? How does this book connect to the world around it? And to have a 16th century book of poetry, the French poetry, that was very clearly read throughout, annotated and loved, tells both a little bit about the period, but also is that inspiration of like, man, I should step into that world, and find somebody loved Di Moreau,
Yes.
right? And so I want to step in and find out what is to love about him. What was his poetry? What did he speak of? What is being annotated about here? And some of those comments are some of the most beautiful parts of the research exploration that we do on a day-to-day basis. A really simple example of part of what I talk about, we want to help customers and collectors curate the stories of their books. Not everybody has the time or the resources or the know-how to navigate a book's history. And you can't know everything, right? You can't know every author, every book, every title, and how it's impacted the culture. Our job is to tell those stories. So that when you come in, you say, I want a story piece. Oh man, well, let's pick, right? Every one of these has had a story written about them, has had those threads pulled to see what might be behind it. It's one of my favorite books in the entire shop, and probably one of the most underrated but impactful books that has been written 19th century and to today, is a book by a guy named George MacDonald. Have you ever heard of George MacDonald?
No, I haven't.
No, which is great. It's
Okay.
it's okay. That's how most people respond. I've never heard of George MacDonald. For the listeners who do know George MacDonald, you know maybe a little bit of his impact. George MacDonald was a 19th century Presbyterian minister, and had some troubles with the church. Ended up writing. He is, by most accounts, the grandfather of modern fantasy. So between him and a guy named William Morris, who was a printer, papermaker, author, made wallpaper, and between those two, we have almost everything to credit our world of fantasy literature to those two. And both of their works are almost unknown to the common reader. So George MacDonald, his first book-length work was this book called Fantastes, subtitled An Adult Fairy Story. And it's just beautiful. It is 19th century fantasy, and so it's a trudge at times, but letting it be what it is and stepping into it's this beautiful story. And written in the 1890s. This book has two major impacts. One, there was a gentleman who was friends with George MacDonald at the time, considered George MacDonald a mentor, and he was writing his own work of literature when George MacDonald released Fantastes. He read Fantastes and just took this huge blow to his ego. He was like, I can't write this. So about to give up on his own project, he asked George MacDonald, he said, will you read what I've written so far and tell me if it's worth continuing? And so George MacDonald, who is this great, dry sense of humor, responded, no, I won't read it. I will have my wife, it was a children's story, I will have my wife read it to my 13 children. And so they did. George MacDonald went back to this gentleman and he said, this was incredible. There's only one problem with it. It needs to be longer. You have to write more. And so the gentleman's name was Lewis Carroll, and he went on to write Alice in Wonderland, and Through the Looking Glass, and the reason we have Alice in Wonderland. Again, we talk about the power of people in your lives. Lewis Carroll had this mentor and friend, George MacDonald, and because of that relationship, because of his trust of MacDonald, to take his manuscript to him and say, is there anything here? The world was literally changed. Similar to that, way later, in early 20th century, a young man at a train stop in London, and he's about 16 years old. And back early 20th century, you had these book stalls at the train stations. And so he picked up this book for a few pence. He picked up Fantasties, and he read it on the train. And reflecting years later, he looked back on this moment of reading Fantasties on that train at 16 and said it was that book that baptized his imagination. And that gentleman will go on to be a professor of literature at Oxford and write the Chronicles of Narnia. And it was C.S. Lewis who later in his life wrote a biography of George MacDonald and would essentially say that there was nothing outside of the writing of his writings that was outside of the influence of George MacDonald.
Wow.
That he was the single greatest. He never met George MacDonald. George MacDonald had passed by the time that Lewis had come of age, and but he would be a spiritual mentor to C.S. Lewis. J.R.R. Tolkien stole things from both William Morris and George MacDonald, and so we have this. Before you even open the page, it's this beautiful cultural narrative of the power of friendship, the power of story, the power of fantasy and imagination. This is the first edition of that story, and so I have a colleague over the UK who says that handling a first edition is the closest thing humanity will ever get to time travel. Holding this first edition is the same book that people in the 1890s, when this book first came out, it's the same book that they held. And that's the closest we'll ever get to being at that moment when a book is released, holding it and reading it for the first time. It's holding a first edition, opening it and reading it for the first time. And so got this huge cultural impact. It's this beautiful first edition. And then we open it up and we talk about the things we love to find in books, these little pieces of provenance. And we have a book plate, which is a very common thing still to this day, kind of an ownership mark. And it's this lovely William Blake image called The Grave. And if you know George MacDonald, you'll know that this is the same image he used on his book plates. And then you start looking at it and you have a little inscription at the top that says, "Courage, God mend all," which is a core part of George MacDonald's theology that all of humanity would be restored in the end of days. This is an anagram for his own name, George MacDonald. And he switches the letters around and creates this gravestone marker. And underneath the very bottom, we see this isn't George MacDonald's book plate. It's Christopher Peter MacDonald's. And Christopher Peter MacDonald is George MacDonald's great-great-grandson. Still alive. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Peter. He lives in London now. And this is from his personal library. And so not only to have Fantasties as a cultural a piece of cultural history, not only to have a first edition of that book and travel back in time to when that book was first released, but to then hold a book that's from the family of one of the most important fantasy authors of the modern era, just continues to ratchet up what we hope for.
Yes.
Right? And so that's a small taste into our back wall of wonders. That's from the 1540s, our oldest book in the shop right now, all the way up to the present day. It's a wall of stories and imagination and cultural movements and these wonderful pieces that for many people have never been cracked. Right. And our hope is to every person looking to begin collecting or find that really special centerpiece or cornerstone of their collection, to be able to match them and pair them with the right story, the story from the wall.
Wow. So what would you tell someone? I know that you said there's a book for every budget here. Let's say someone says, "Oh, I really want a first edition of The Hobbit someday." Yeah. What should they do now? If
Save.
Right, exactly.
We always say when people ask where do I start collecting, right? Collect what you love, right? The beauty of book collecting is you don't collect to make money. You will inevitably fail. and you will lose a lot more money than you make. And so collect what you love. That doesn't mean you have to collect first editions. I personally, one of the pieces of my home collection are, I love like 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s paperback box sets. And so I've got, Asimov's Foundation trilogy. I've got Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea trilogy. I have the Narnia and Tolkien and Gormenghast from Mervyn Peake. And I love the art. I love the feel. And for the most part, they're fairly inexpensive. But I love them.
Yes.
And that's actually, I have some more rare and collectible things in my library. I love those more.
Yeah.
And so I always say collect what you love.
Yeah.
And if that is a first edition of The Hobbit, then figure out how to either financially tier it up or get in the right auctions, get to know your local rare book dealer, to be on the look, to help you find and begin to curate that library. That's not within the reach of everybody, right? And so, again, the beauty of collecting is, well, what is a good edition of The Hobbit that you can have? There's these beautiful, we have a beautiful illustrated edition of The Hobbit by Alan Lee, who's one of the most important Tolkien illustrators, signed by Alan Lee. It's under $500.
Wow.
What a great spot to start. That's not something that everybody, even if they have that book, they probably don't have one signed by Alan Lee. And even if they do, what a great conversation. You found somebody else that has this book. And so there's so many places to begin collecting, to allow yourself a stair step to move on, if you do have aspirations for the high end. And if you don't, figure out what you love. What is it about books that have changed culture that you love to collect? And collect those books. Collect books that have spoken into a particular movement in history that really matters to you. We have a lady collects through us, and she's going back and collecting. She was a late to life reader, and but she has this 4th grade teacher who made an impact on her, who read out loud to her. She's now a lifelong friend, and she's going back and collecting the first editions of the books that she read to her. Her introduction to literature was through children's literature. And so we're looking at first editions of Stuart Little and Charlotte's Web and Narnia and those kinds of things. And so find what you love. Find when you sit down at the end of the day and you look up at your library or your shelf, what is it that would bring the biggest smile to your face to see? Well, put that on your shelf.
Yes.
And if that costs you $15,
Yes.
great. If that costs you $15,000 and you want to put that investment in, awesome. Put it high up on a shelf so no one can touch it. And do that. But at the end of the day, can you sit down and look at what you've collected, and will it bring you joy? Will it make you happy to share it with other people, to look at it every day, to pull those books off the shelf and tell the stories to the people that walk into your home, and to use that as a catalyst to make memories, and to further tell those stories and impact the world around you for good. If you can do that, you have the perfect collection.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. And I did hear a quote that somebody said, "My books are friends that will never fail me."
Yeah.
And I love that so much, because I think we're in this electronic world of scrolling and all of that, and it's just this is what will never fail you. You can always go back to your favorite stories, your old friends.
Books are people too. And they want to speak, and they want to be loved, and they want to be cared for, just like we do. And, and we get to be their caretakers.
Wow, I have learned so much from talking to you today. Thank you so much. I can't wait to come back. Before we go, tell everybody where everybody can find the Hermitage.
You can find the Hermitage, best place to find the Hermitage is on the corner of Fillmore and 3rd in Cherry Creek North in Denver. And we are just sub terra, below the street level, which fits well with our name. You can also find us if you're not in Denver. You can also find us at hermitagebooks.com. We have our entire collection of books are available on our website. We ship anywhere in the world. You can find us on social media at Hermitage_Bookshop, primarily on Instagram, to stay up to date with all of our upcoming events, sales, open houses. We do a first Friday every month. We stay open from 5 to 9 and do free drinks and desserts and discounts across the shop. And so come visit in person, buy from us online, check us out on social media, and introduce yourself when you do come in.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Sam Butler.
Rachel.
I was going to say, choose books, you'll be choosing happiness.
Right.
Choose the Hermitage, and you'll be choosing happiness.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel.
Well, we'll see you next time.